So I'm here at VMware with Jim Cascade of Infochimps, and pretty big company in the big data space. So maybe you can just quickly introduce what you do at Infochimps.
Absolutely. So Infochimps is positioning themselves as the #1 big data as a service company for the cloud. And when we define cloud, we define not only public cloud, but we're defining cloud as your private cloud, or your managed service for Fortune 1000 companies. And our focus is helping big companies solve big analytic problems.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of interesting, we're looking at the intersection of how people are starting to build out these platforms for big data, and we're tending to find to have different components of the architecture. So are you seeing that there's just sort of one size fits all, so all the analytics can be built on the same platform, or are there multiple types of data stores, like for example there's SQL and there's Hive and there's Hadoop, and so what are people using here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a complex problem. I think when you think of data as your main asset, you can't have one size fit all in terms of data stores. So there's a real-time component and there's a batch analytic component, just like there is in the traditional domain of data warehousing for decision support, and then OLTP, for transactional. So we're looking at, real-time data stores such as Cassandra, HBase, Gemfire, and many others coming on the scene with kind of the NoSQL architectures and new SQL architectures, and then of course with Hadoop, as your central batch processing component.
Okay. So does Hive play a pretty big role in this? So I heard some people have SQL databases and some people have Hive. So what's the difference, and why are there two different databases?
So the reality is people speak in what they know, and that is, for business analysts it's Excel, and for much of the organization it's SQL. So you have to have any new data environment has to be able to support traditional SQL. Otherwise, you're not speaking the language of the organization. So Hive definitely plays a part. There's a lot of opportunities to evolve Hive, but I think it definitely is a key aspect of the big data solution.
So you mentioned the real-time application. So what's going on there? So do you have some examples of some use cases that would be driving the real-time?
Yeah, absolutely. So Infochimps is currently working with a fairly large media company, billion-dollar media company, and the use case for them is partly real-time and partly batch. And the real-time piece is taking traditional large amounts of, not traditional, the new large amounts of social data from Twitter and other news and blogging networks, and using that to understand brands and understanding what's going on with your particular brand, and being able to present in real time a dashboard of sentiment and other things for brand managers. And then historically you want to look at what's happening through that period of time. Maybe it's a month during the launch of the product, or maybe it's over a course of a year or year to year. You want to look what's happening with your product and what people are saying about it. Also coupled with the traditional data sources about what's in inventory, what was the weather the day you launched it, etc. So you have this historic batch processing coupled with what's happening right now in real time, and you cannot execute a big data project without both of those, in my opinion.
So what's the platform component you need for the real-time piece? I guess you have some way to store the data, or maybe some way to do event processing, but which pieces do you see being used?
Yeah, so you need, first of all, how to get the data in. So you're connecting with multiple data sources, and then maybe processing those on the fly, decorating those in a way where it can then be consumed by your business analysts, and then it's dropped into a real-time data store. So most of the industry today, looking at the big data stack, might look at HBase as the place where they're going to store their real-time data and being able to access that, and of course with VMware Gemfire. I think the data ingress and store, and then data egress into something consumable in real time are the main components of that part of the solution.
And you see some sort of complex event processing going on the data ingress. Is it just data sucking into the platform, or is there actually application rules getting fired as the data is being ingressed?
So the financial industry has kind of paved the way for manipulating in-stream data. So complex event processing being born born out of that industry for the most part, is definitely a main component. You know, you got other new technologies from Twitter like Storm or S4 coming on the scene that are providing the same promise in terms of being able to connect to these real-time data streams. But I think there's also a piece that's still missing, and that is taking what is complex in terms of in-stream processing and putting that in the hands of business users, the hands of application developers, and this new generation of data scientists, and hopefully people within your organization that you're training to become data scientists who can easily use this new technology that involves real-time data stream processing.
So what's the implication then on sort of the infrastructure and I guess what we're trying to do is turn these into a service to make it really easy for developers and business units to get a hold of. So what do you see needing to happen in that space?
Yeah, so it starts with being able to deploy it seamlessly. So that gets back to the same value proposition of cloud or public cloud, private cloud, providing infrastructure as a service, in this case, big data infrastructure as a service. So you have to be able to deploy that seamlessly, monitor it, manage it, and then beyond that, data as a service requires the same core components of security, reliability, SLA, that takes you up from the hardware deployment as well as into the actual middleware and the application itself. So I think there's a number of key pieces in systems management, security, and deployment that needs to be there. When you think about the big data stack itself, you've got a whole architecture of ingestion solutions, the actual data storage solutions, and then you have the data manipulation solutions, you have the analytics themselves, and then of course you've got business intelligence and applications. All of that requires an incredible amount of technology and architecture that's managed and scaled on demand. And that's kind of the last piece, is how do you scale this on demand in a way that's very easy and very seamless and almost extracted.
So some of the service providers provide some analytics on demand, so you can just go and sign up and you can say, I want to put this batch processing or map reduce on the system without having to know anything about what the infrastructure is on the back end. Do you see the same sort of thing happening in the enterprises, where today it's sort of manually provisioned and it's a shared installation with some of the issues that come out of being shared? But do you see the point where each business department gets the virtual analytics platform provisioned for them as a service?
I think there's going to be multiple levels depending on the audience. So you're going to have the people that are going to be very hands-on. They're going to take something like Serengeti from VMware, deploy their Hadoop clusters, virtualized Hadoop clusters, log in and start to actually write and submit MapReduce jobs. And then there's going to be the layer above that, which are going to be people who just do not want to know what a name node, a data node is, and they want data as a service. So they want web services that give them access to large-scale data analytics that have been abstracted completely from the hardware and software.
Yep. So if you get rapidly provision on demand, a set of services to store this data, process against the data, and have your tool set provisioned against it as well, I guess. So that's right. You're probably going to have all your languages in R and Python and everything, all your analytics. Right. You want all that done for you and provisioned. So there's probably an interesting intersection between you want the infrastructure deployed automatically and a more PaaS-like experience for the application environments.
Yeah, just like it's evolved in private cloud. Right. Start with giving anybody root login, and they have the same domain that they're used to. In this case, logging into the name node or an edge node, to evolving to PaaS, which is really where this becomes ubiquitous and really closes the gap between data and people who can realize insights extremely quickly. Ideally, we would just get rid of data scientists. We would get rid of IT, and we just put business analysts and application developers and the organization that's creating change directly connected with the data itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great. Thanks very much. Good discussion.